The NFL draft season's almost over as we head into the holiday weekend and into the regular season. This weekend's going to be one of the hottest times to draft fantasy football all year long because everybody's getting together, ready to get their drafts on. And today, to get you ready for that moment, we're going over 10 players who could pop off on your team this year. Guys who could go off on the waiver wire that you may be looking at here in the next few weeks. We're going to cover those players today, but before we do, you got to smash that subscribe button right now. You need to hit that button and stop missing out on this information to help you get players off waivers, to help you win those trades, to help you with this draft that's coming up, and to help you win your league. We're going to be here all year long anyways. Hit that button. Stop missing out. And today, our first player is going to be Darren Waller. We haven't talked about him much this offseason, so we're going to talk about him today. I think this might be the second or third time even. But Darren Waller, tight end 4 and ADP per underdog fantasy. He's not cheap, but he's not super expensive like the top guys either. But he is kind of a top guy since he's a tight end 4. But a 13.6 average depth of target, gets targeted deep downfield. 13.9 yards per reception last year. Injuries have been hampering him recently. But the thing about this, now we're with the Giants. We got a little look, a little sample in preseason of what could be going on. And we could be seeing Danny Dimes targeting him left and right. Him getting targets, him getting volume, him getting opportunity to be successful. You're getting him at an okay price range. You're also getting him at a price range in the draft where you should be good at wide receiver and running back. And both of those pools are starting to lessen. And now you can really dip your toes in the tight end spot. Really depends on what else is on the board there, what else you want. But again, Darren Waller there, per the upside, per the volume. Could be the team's wide receiver 1. Could be leading the team in catches and yards. That's not outside the realm of possibilities here. And he has been productive before. High-end athleticism, former wide receiver. He did well with the transition very quickly. And he can really help your fantasy team if things go how they've been looking like here in the preseason. Next, we're looking at DIONTAE Johnson, wide receiver 29. I've talked about him a good bit. But 147 targets, 0 touchdowns. That's about unheard of. That's hard to do. That is very hard to do, and I do not see the volume of targets decreasing at all. I look for him to have a very good target share, a very good share of the air yards. It's hard to see him not score any touchdowns this year. It'll at least get you 1, but more than likely multiple, and 10.6 points per game while scoring 0 touchdowns is a good marker because you throw in a few touchdowns, that's increased. The upside's increased. He's getting good air yards. He's a separator. Targets are going to be flowing. This offense has been looking good this preseason. Should be looking good in the regular season. I think DIONTAE Johnson is going to give you a good return on investment compared to the ADP. The next guy we're looking at is Jahan Dotson, wide receiver 37 ADP. Some people got questions about the quarterback play, but he played well with bad quarterback play anyway. So what's the difference? What's the difference with that? And it could be better, actually, if Sam Howell really takes a step forward. There's a lot of hype about that, but hype is hype, and we all know that. But this guy can be productive. He's had 5 games with 6+ targets, and in his last 5 games, he averaged 14.6 points per game. There were multiple weeks where he outscored Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin starting the season injured, so that could impact Dotson in a positive light. He could be more productive, seeing more opportunity, which is a good thing to see here out of the young wide receiver. Second-year wide receiver who's a former first-rounder. Those wide receivers usually take a turn for the best in their second and third year. Dotson looks like a player who's going in the middle rounds who could really jump in value and production and help your fantasy team. So you need to pay attention to him. I think he's a great value, and I think he's going in a spot of the draft where the wide receivers are starting to dwindle, and he could really help your fantasy team on the back end, especially if he's scoring like he did last year, 17 points, 20 points, 16 points. Those when he was healthy. He was in and out last year due to injury, and he was a rookie, and he really popped off well, quickly, and transitioned quickly to the NFL game. So another offseason under his belt, another year of training camp. Look for him to do some good things. Next, we're looking at Skyy Moore, wide receiver 45. Juju's gone. He was a second-round pick. Skyy Moore should be getting a lot of run in the first-team offense. Should be on the field a lot this year. Should be getting some targets. Has some upside. The price looks right for this too. as people were paying a lot more for Juju last year, and he's going to be in the slot like Juju was, and he could be getting similar target share, which could be something you want, considering Kadarius Toney's been hurt. Don't know what's going on with that, and you don't know if he's going to get hurt again, because that seems like the likely scenario considering what history has been saying. And we got some athleticism, we got some upside, very nuanced route runner, very nuanced player, and a guy that could really help your fantasy team because he's in an explosive offense. You want pieces of this Chiefs offense. Fantasy football is not hard. You look at these explosive offenses, and you try to get the players from there, and then build around them with the other guys. Next, Ezekiel Elliott, RB49 ADP. And the thing about this is he's very cheap. RB50 range. Call it in range. When you say RB49, RB39, just put them in a range. Round them up, round them down, and just say RB50-ish, because that's really what it is. Pass pro is insane here. Very good protecting the quarterback, and that's going to be getting him on the field. Remember who's his head coach is, Bill Belichick. Those little things are very important to him. So Elliott's going to be on the field. Ramondre Stevenson should be eating still, but Damian Harris is gone. 202 snaps are gone. Looking at the rushing attempts here, 93. Those are gone. Some of those could go to Stevenson, but Elliott's going to be on the field as well because the NFL game in this area, you're using multiple running backs. He could be getting some opportunity. And on top of that, if something happens to Stevenson, you know they're going to use Elliott between the tackles and get some opportunity. He's going to be on the field. Could be a sneaky play. I do not see huge upside unless something happens to Stevenson. On top of that, you don't know what game's going to be an Elliott game, a Stevenson game. You know the history of this team. I look for Ramondre Stevenson to do good things. I look for him to catch the ball in the backfield and be productive like last year. I look for Ezekiel Elliott to sneak on the field here and there, not be productive, but you're waiting to see if something happens or if they use them more in certain game scripts, and you're really getting another running back for the back end of your roster here at RB50 range. Think about the running backs in that range. It's really starting to dwindle down there, and if you want a veteran, you got one there. Or you're chasing the rookies. I like to chase the rookies. That's probably what I would be doing. But if you want a veteran, Ezekiel Elliott. Next, Jameson Williams, wide receiver, 56 in ADP. Gotta look at this depth chart here. It is not great at the wide receiver position outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown. So when he comes back, they're going to love him out there to stretch the field. So when you think about him stretching the field, go back to fantasy seasons of past. Look at Will Fuller. Think about Will Fuller. Some of you guys hated Will Fuller because he was so up and so down. And the downs outweighed the ups. But when those ups hit, they hit. And they hit huge, like 30, 40-point weeks. Because him seeing those targets downfield, catching those balls downfield, and all he had to do was reel in one or two, and it was lights out. That's something you could be seeing from him. And that's the upside you could be chasing. And you're paying about wide receiver 55 price tag. That's free right now. He's going to be suspended. I imagine a lot of people who are going to be drafting him over the weekend are going to be releasing him to the waiver wire over these next few weeks. Pay attention to Jameson Williams. The upside is grand. He is pretty nuanced for being a speed guy too. We got elite speed out of this dude. We got a team that can move the football. Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be the dude there. He's going to eat. But we're looking at a wide receiver here, a prospect, that could give you some boom-bust weeks on the back end of the season. A lottery ticket that's cheap right now, because usually if he was healthy, if he was giving you those camp highlights, and if he wasn't being suspended, people will be drafting him a lot higher. You're catching him at a discount there. Next, Zay Jones, wide receiver 58 in ADP. He's going to be on the field, and he's shown to be productive, and he's shown to have a rapport with Trevor Lawrence. And you're not drafting him to be your top guy. Maybe you missed out on the wide receiver position, and you're trying to catch up on the back end. He's going to be on the field on 2 wide receiver sets. Last year, he was wide receiver 31 in points per game. Calvin Ridley's there. He's going to soak up target share. But this offense is very potent. It's very explosive. And you want these second and third tier guys on the offense when they're dirt cheap like this, just in case they hit, just in case injuries hit, or they start doing good things like he did last year's 12th in red zone targets, 17th in receptions. He might have an opportunity to be somewhat productive, give you spike weeks, maybe have a run of a few games, play the matchups with him. Again, you're drafting him around wide receiver 60 range. Think about that. There's a good chance he gives you a return on investment, that he gives you more than wide receiver 5 and wide receiver 6 numbers. Maybe wide receiver 3 and 4. And you may not like that. It may not be fun. But also at that price range, when you're looking at wide receivers and you're also looking at spike weeks due to the explosiveness of the offense, that could be good for you. That could be good. And you just play the matchups. And then you're looking at him in DFS. He'll be cheap. And he'll have these upside spike weeks that you can chase. So Zay Jones is a guy you need to pay attention to. Next is Marvin Mims, wide receiver 59, ADP. Jerry Jeudy's hurt and could be a bit that he's out. So you need to pay attention to this young guy. Second round wide receiver who was very productive at Oklahoma. 32.72% market share of the passing production. And he was productive at a young age as he broke out at age 19. Pretty much broke out at 18, really. Was just a few percentage points off from the breakout. But Marvin Mims has a good tape, good highlight package, good production metrics, runs in the 4.3s, can stretch the field. He's proven that in preseason, and he could be earning more target share than what we think. And with that being said, on top of that, he will be getting air yards because that's what he's good at, and he can create separation. I think he's a guy you need to chase here, especially if you're looking at wide receiver here in the later rounds. Honestly, you should be looking at running back because of the fragility of the position. But Marvin Mims, if you missed out on wide receiver, there's a good upside guy here. The Broncos invested in the offensive line. Russell Wilson might have some extra time to throw the ball this year. He might transition better in year 2 anyways. And this could allow a guy like Marvin Mims to really come in full stride. Next, we're looking at Irv Smith, tight end 18 in ADP. And he's a dirt cheap tight end. And we like dirt cheap tight ends. We either want to pay up for tight end, really, or just get a cheap guy, honestly. When you think about the tight end position from week to week in the scoring here, there's a few guys who go off, and then you're looking at like tight end 5, 6, 7, 8s, and they're really not scoring much more than the guys who are like tight end 15, tight end 20, tight end 25. There are some weeks where the guys who are scoring in the tight end 8, the tight end 10 to 12 range are not even scoring double-digit PPR fantasy points. So what are we really doing paying up for these guys when things are very fragile from week to week? We got Irv Smith here, a high-end prospect coming out of college. Hasn't really hit yet, but he's in the Bengals offense. 4.63 40 time. He's had some good grabs here over training camp and stuff. The value versus tight end 12 and tight end 25 is not much. So even if he misses out or if he busts, you're not really busting here. One, the price is free. He's probably on waivers anyways. You can pick him up and play waivers with him. You can really strategize around him if you haven't paid up for the tight end position, and you can really just stream it. And you can play the matchups. What if something happens to one of the wide receivers there? They may lean more on Irv Smith. Good pass-catching tight end. And Justyn Ross, we need to talk about him. He is the guy that could blossom this year. He is the underdog. Wide receiver 79 ADP, sitting on your waivers. You need to look at him every week. You need to watch his snaps every week. You need to watch his targets every week because he's in a prolific offense, and he was a prolific wide receiver at Clemson before the injury. And that injury happened. He was out. Then he came back. And really, the odds of him coming back wasn't good, but he came back. He played well at Clemson, had over a 20% market share of the team's passing yards, but the offense was not good. And then he comes out for the draft. Because of that injury, falls out, goes to the Chiefs, gets injured again. Now we're here. He's doing good. He's doing good in training camp, making highlight reel catches in preseason games. He's on the depth chart. A lot of people were calling him to get cut earlier this year. That did not happen. He could be a waiver wire dandy. He very well could be. A lot of upside here. A lot of talent. If he never gotten hurt and everything went according to plan, he would have been a first-round wide receiver. Probably would have been one of the top drafted wide receivers in this year's draft in fantasy. Probably would have been very productive. Now we're watching the underdog story unfold. And if we don't get him in fantasy, and if he's not a productive fantasy asset for fantasy football, at least he's the guy we can root for and pay attention to. You need to pay attention to Justyn Ross because players like that, those storylines, that's fun about football. That's very fun about football. And if he can hit for fantasy, that'd be even cooler. And the upside's unreal. The upside's unreal because of the offense and his talent level. But who are you looking to draft? Who are you looking to get on your fantasy team this week? And let me know in the comments below. I want to hear about it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. Catch you on the next video.